There comes a point when pain becomes so overwhelming that you feel you cannot endure a single day more. Yet, it is exactly at that moment that everything has the potential to change. Perhaps you have felt the urge to truly quit waking up and thinking that you simply cannot handle the weight of your life anymore. Whether you are struggling to provide for your family, building a business from scratch, or are simply exhausted from working without seeing results, that voice in your head may tell you to let go. However, you were born for this, and there is a concept from Japan that has saved many from total collapse. The word Ganbaru. This expression gave people the strength to rebuild an entire nation from the ashes of war, helping them transform their pain into purpose. To understand the power of Ganbaru, consider the story of Kanji, a 19-year-old living in rural Japan in 1947. 2 years after the end of World War II, the country was in ruins. Cities were reduced to debris, the economy had collapsed, and millions were starving. Having lost his father in the war, Kenji was the man of the house, responsible for his mother, 2 younger brothers, and his grandmother. Every morning he woke with an empty stomach and the weight of the world on his shoulders, feeling like a failure because he could not provide enough for his family despite his hard work in the fields. One bitter morning, after being turned away from a farm that had no work to offer, Kenji sat in the dirt and wept, finally ready to surrender to defeat. In that moment of despair, an elderly man named Tada appeared. Noticing Kenji's distress, Tada offered him a job in his small carpentry workshop in a neighboring village. Though the pay was modest, it offered Kenji a spark of hope. The work was grueling. Kenji's hands bled and his muscles ached, but he persisted. One evening, while sharing tea, Tada asked Kenji if he knew the meaning of Ganbaru. He explained that it is an ancient word meaning to persist and do one's absolute best, even when everything seems impossible. Tada shared that he had lost everything in the war but chose to Ganbaru, rebuilding his life one board at a time. He taught Kenji that growth does not happen in comfort. It happens within the struggle. This realization transformed Kenji. His progress did not happen overnight, but through daily dedication. He stopped focusing on his pain and began to focus on his purpose. His hands calloused, his movements became precise, and he learned to respect the wood he worked with. Most importantly, he began to believe in himself again, a belief built brick by brick through disciplined action. Tada watched this transformation with pride, noting that Kenji was learning about much more than just carpentry. The true test came 6 months later when Tada fell ill and had to rest, leaving the entire workshop in Kenji's hands. Kenji was no longer the defeated boy in the dirt. He was a man ready to persist. As Kenji felt the familiar grip of fear, he turned to Mr. Tada, doubting his own ability to handle the weight of the responsibility thrust upon him. However, his mentor remained firm, insisting that he would never have entrusted Kenji with the task if he didn't believe in his potential. Left alone, Kenji suddenly found himself responsible for every order, customer, and quality standard. The pressure was suffocating, especially when a large, complex order for an important client arrived. He worked tirelessly through days and nights, sweating and redoing his mistakes until one morning, he sat on the floor with his head bowed, convinced he would fail both Mr. Tada and himself. In that moment of despair, he remembered his mentor's words. "It is in pain, Kenji, that we grow." Taking a deep breath, Kenji stood up and finished the table. While it wasn't perfect, it was honest. Crafted with a spirit of Ganbaru, the Japanese concept of persistent effort and resilience. When the client arrived, he was so impressed by the craftsmanship and the soul of the work that he promised to recommend Kenji to everyone he knew. Alone in the workshop, Kenji cried, but these were tears of victory rather than defeat. When Mr. Tada returned and saw the result, he reminded Kenji that while he had shown him the way, it was Kenji who had walked the path. Over time, Kenji's success grew, allowing him to provide a dignified life for his family. He didn't become a millionaire, but he gained something far more valuable: purpose and the strength to face any challenge. The science behind Kenji's story supports the power of Ganbaru. Researchers have linked the ability to persist through adversity to a growth mindset, the belief that skills are developed through effort. Neuroscientists have even found that when we choose to persist through difficulties, our brains create new neural connections, literally making us mentally stronger. However, Ganbaru is not about blind stubbornness. It is about resilience and adapting one's strategy with intelligence while never losing sight of the why behind the struggle. This lesson applies to everyone facing their own Ganbaru moment. Whether it's building a business, studying for a career change, or simply trying to survive, pain is an unavoidable part of growth and transformation. Ganbaru does not require you to be a superhero who never feels fear or exhaustion. Rather, it is the choice to keep going even when your legs are shaking. The person you become during the process is much more important than the final result. Kenji's legacy wasn't wealth, but character. Success is not the absence of fear or pain, but the decision to act in spite of them. By choosing to persist and using pain as fuel, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the protagonist of your own story. Your journey is still being written, and it does not have to end in surrender.